Today's guest is Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. Ian is passionate about local business and has spent several years in the private and public sector within our region. He is currently chair of multiple boards in our region. He is passionate about driving initiative for small businesses as well as economic growth and prosperity in our region. When Ian is not championing for our community, he is a devoted father of 2 daughters and passionate about his dog. Well, Ian, thank you so much for coming on this episode of Beyond the Mortgage. I know we always have engaging conversation and never enough time.
Never. There's always lots to cover. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the first thing I wanted to start and talk about is really dive into what is the Chamber. A lot of people ask me, I've been a member for many years and I'm a true advocate and believe in it as a small business owner. But I think I really want to hear it from your perspective of what the Chamber is and what it does for the community.
Well, at base level, the Chamber is a business association. We have over 1,600 members, and it covers soup to nuts. So everything from the smallest entrepreneur to some of our largest employers here in Waterloo Region. And we try and advocate for all of the needs of our members. And in some respects, it's actually, we have a membership of, I guess, 1,600, but there's a business community in Kitchener-Waterloo and Woolwich Township that probably have 12 or 13,000 businesses. Wow. So they're not all our members, but we say we're a voice for business broadly. I think one of the pieces that we do in buckets is we try and advocate for our members on both things that are important to business, but also to community. We do networking events to make sure there's opportunities for our businesses to get together, get to know one another, and try and find ways to work together. We do educational events, and sometimes that's politics. Sometimes it's everything from finance or accounting, try and give them professional access to events that they may not get themselves. And I guess when I talk about a chamber, I think it's probably important, and this would be the same all over the country, regardless of the size of your community or the size of your the chamber membership itself. I would say 50% of our members would have 10 employees or less. North of 75% that have 20 employees or less. And so the vast majority of any chamber is small business. That's the lifeblood of the business community across the whole country and in every region of the country.
So when we talk about, you're talking about small business in our community, how many businesses are actually a member of the Chamber right now? Do you know?
So it's just over 1,600.
Wow.
1,600 members. And we have, there are trade associations. So Communitech, and we're very close partnership with the Cambridge Chamber, with Communitech, which is the tech association, obviously. Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, which does both inbound and existing economic development for businesses that are already here, but also trying to get foreign direct investment. And then our friends at Explore Waterloo, which is the hospitality and tourism sector, which is so important to what makes a community exciting to be around, and it's a huge important part of our economy. So we work closely with those organizations that may be more targeted, but chambers really cover the landscape. And I guess the one thing that for me kind of captures it, when I first started the chamber 15 years ago, we were just going through a rebranding. And we were talking about taglines, and I had been there a few months. And as soon as I heard where we landed, the tagline that we landed on, I said, that's what it feels like to me. And our tagline is business building community. And for me, that was perfect because we know that it's important for us to build up the business community. For business to be successful, that's one of our mandates. But it's also important for when you say business building community is if we don't have a strong community as a whole, business can't be successful. And so, us being very involved in community initiatives, and we can talk a little later about Best Waterloo, some of the things that are happening. We're 700,000 people in the region of Waterloo. We're going to be 1 million in 20 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's 300,000 more people going to live here. It probably means, roughly speaking, another 100,000 jobs are going to be required to sustain the community. We know we've already, like most communities across Ontario and across Canada, have housing issues. We don't have enough supply, and you're in that space.
Yeah.
We got to build something in the order of 70,000 housing units of all descriptions in the next 25 years. I don't think we've done that in the last 50 years. So
exactly,
we got just on housing and finishing the LRT so that we know that the development's coming. Land assembly, why that's important is if we don't have another anchor employer that's going to employ 10 or 15,000 people with a supply chain of, another 25, 30,000 jobs, where are people going to work?
Exactly.
So, you think about housing, you think about, jobs, you think about healthcare. We're passionately behind saying we haven't had a new hospital in 60 years in Waterloo Region. We need to get that done. So there are some of those things that are not specific business issues, but if we don't have the healthcare that people need, investors aren't coming to a place where they don't have a skilled workforce, where we don't have housing, where we don't have healthcare. They're paying attention to those things, which is, does the community have capacity for me to be successful if I'm taking my dollars and investing them here in Waterloo Region? So there's a lot of components, and for me, that's the part that really excites me, is saying we're obviously supporting our members and doing the things to help them be successful, but we have to make the community successful at the same time.
And I think that, like what you said, is it's the whole infrastructure of the community, right? That needs to be built to be able to have a lot of these goals that, are out there right now of what the expectation is for population growth, for housing. But we need the jobs. We need the infrastructure to be able to do that. So I want to get back to the chamber because I'm curious because I went through your bio. You've done so much and you continue to do it. I think I'm busy, but you almost put me to shame with what you've got involved. And you're on so many different boards as well to be able to support that. And I want to talk about that because I haven't on any of the episodes when I've had business leaders in, is how do you pivot being on so many boards or in leadership positions in different multiple sectors and still be the president and CEO of the chamber?
Well, I guess I would start by saying if I didn't have the team that I have, I wouldn't be able to do the things that make, my team always says, what are the things that we need to do so Ian can do the things that he's best at? And I got a great team that does events. I got a great team that does the finance and the operations and the sales of all the activities that we need to do. We're not for profit. So I got 16 staff, including me. We're, $3.5 million organization. So we are a small but mighty band that I think punch way above our weight. So the things that I'm involved in, and I have been since I started the chamber, as an example, the Immigration Partnership of Waterloo Region. I've been on the council, which is like the board of directors. I also chair the working pillar, which is to try and connect business of all sizes to newcomers coming to our community and as a talent source. And the reason that's, it's the right thing to do. I grew up my dad was involved in politics. There was always people from all over the world that would come and visit Waterloo Region from his time in the church or in politics. And we are connected to a larger world out there. But the Immigration Partnership is important because right now, if you want to find the talent source for every business, by and large, and all net new employment in Waterloo Region comes from newcomers to our community. And in a lot of ways, it's not even just new to our community; it's new to the country. Canada is in a position of if we don't have immigrants coming here, we will not have the workers to support business. So being involved in the Immigration Partnership is the right thing to do. Need to welcome people, make sure they have a sense of belonging, that they have employment. But it's just a business imperative. That's the workforce of the future. Your future employees, my future employees at the chamber and every business, by and large, are going to be coming from people from elsewhere. So that's one of those things which is, really important. And I put time into that for very specific reasons. Is that it's both the right thing to do, but it's also a business imperative. And so getting involved in the things around the community. To me, you're never far removed from saying, again, business building community. If we don't have a successful community, we won't have successful businesses. We won't have the jobs of the future. We won't have the economic wealth and the dollars to support our community, our citizens, the way they need to be supported. So, being involved and being an advocate for a new hospital it's not really a business issue in the straight, if you look at it narrowly. Broadly, we don't have a new hospital. We are not going to have investors coming here and saying, I'm going to put my dollars here, but oh, by the way, we don't have family doctors. We don't have a hospital. We don't have the pieces that not only citizens but business are looking for when they make their investment decisions. So, all of those things that I get involved in are, they're all connected to the community being successul.
And I think you just summed it up too. It's being part of the whole, right? With each of these pieces to connect what the vision is going forward. So let's talk about immigration, because I think some of the stats that I read there, especially specifically in our region, is we've brought in about 20,000 permanent residents in our community over the last 3 years. And now there's been some shift in regards to immigration, the number of immigrants that are allowed to come into our country. And we know businesses, specifically even in our region, because we've been one of the fastest growing regions, I think, not only in Canada, but I think really in the world. When looking at it with a lot of these shifts of how much immigration cannot come in, what is your perspective of that for all of these goals that we have of, Vision 1 million for the region by, 2050, so in another 25 years, and with the amount of expectation of housing supply that we're supposed to have, and again, the new hospital and the infrastructure, like you said, like 0.25% of our population right now in this region is new immigrants. Where's that going forward if we're going to have some of these hiccups?
Yeah, so these are these are complicated questions, right? And so let me start by saying back in the Dalton McGuinty era, the province set the goal of 951,000 by 2051. Now, there isn't anyone that I run into these days that thinks it's going to be 951,000 by 2051. It's more like there'll be over 1 million by 2045, like within 20 years. But that decision was made at the provincial level with the support of the municipalities in the region. But that's 25 years ago. Yeah. Like Dalton McGuinty that's 25 or 25 years ago. So those decisions were made about that we were a place to grow. That's why they had the Places to Grow Act. That's why they said where are the communities that we're going to incent and expect growth to happen, and Waterloo Region is one of them. So this is not something that should be a surprise to anyone. This has been in the planning for a long time. It's the closer it gets to reality is it becomes more urgent for everybody. So I think that's a important context piece to be setting. I think when we talk about immigration, actually the immigration levels really haven't dropped. What happened was, as we were kind of coming out of COVID, the federal government or however it happened, federal government had about 1 million extra people come into the country 2 years in a row. That's a problem when we're not ready for those people, because they need to live somewhere. They need to have health care. They need to, be how do we get them prepared to be, the workers of the future? Yeah. We didn't. It was obvious we didn't have the plan wasn't in place to say, we're going to have 1 million extra people come in 2 years in a row. So the numbers really haven't dropped in terms of what is being planned for. We have to be and we have to take some ownership ourselves for saying we know we need the workers of the future. So where are we at in terms of saying our businesses, are they prepared for what people from different backgrounds and different places around the world, are we prepared for them? But do we have the services that are required to do that? Healthcare, education. Like you go down the list, there's a lot of things that we need to be conscious of because people are coming. Kitchener-Waterloo, or the Waterloo Region, this census metropolitan area, will be it already is, I think it's the third or fourth destination for immigrants in Canada, right? So a lot of people they'll come into Halifax, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, but then where do they end up settling? Because that's the place they might come into. Well, Waterloo Region is one of those destinations of choice. And we've got lots to commend that. We have, our economy here, and you would see this, and I watch your podcast and hear you talk at our Titans group and other things of saying, we look a lot more like a Vancouver, Toronto, or Montreal than we do other smaller centers.
Absolutely we do, yeah.
Because we have manufacturing, because we have healthcare, because we have post-secondary, because we have, professional services, banking, we look like we are, technology, obviously. We have 5, 6, 7 sectors that are all between 10 and I haven't even mentioned agriculture, but agriculture and food processing. We have a wide variety of sectors that sustain Waterloo Region. And so we have needs of all types of skilled workers to sustain that. And so, I think one of the pieces that we just need to do is we need to be prepared for whoever comes here to Waterloo Region, recognizing a lot of them will be newcomers to the country. And so that's for sure something that is really key to our success. The business organizations we've been meeting since 3 days into COVID. We met probably 7 or 8 times a week, so sometimes twice a day for over a year, almost 2 years. We still meet once a week. Coming out of COVID, as we were kind of coming out of and getting back to whatever the new normal looks like, we continue to meet once a week because we started seeing, boy, there's a lot of gaps. What's the plan for us to be 1 million people? And I think in the coming days, you're going to see we have spent a lot of time talking about it, saying we need to put a scorecard together to hold the community to account. Not just government, but the provincial government, the federal government, municipal government, our own organizations, the community as a whole, saying if we're going to be 1 million people, are we ready? And so we're going to have a scorecard that says, are we ready? And the answer right now is, I don't see the integrated, coordinated plan, but it's important for us to all get on the same page and say, what's the plan for building a new hospital? What's the plan for building 70,000 housing units? What's the plan for, talent and the jobs of the future? What are the plans for what makes this community worth living in? A lot of work to be done, and it's not something that we can wait. And from our perspective in the business community, it keeps coming back to it, is we're not just on the business side, we're on that. What are the things that this community needs to do to be successful? Because right now, the one certainty that I would bet dollars to donuts is there's going to be 1 million people here in 25 years. The real question is, are we going to be a community worth living in? Are we going to have housing? Are we going to be back to having people renting condos and having, bunk beds and have 8 people living in a condo, that's just not appropriate. It's not right. It's not what we should expect for others or ourselves as a community. We know those people are coming. Do we have the social services? Do we have the housing? Do we have the healthcare? Do we have the jobs for people to be successful? And so there's a lot of work to be done. And our chamber takes some leadership along with other business. And there's lots of organizations that are outside of business. But we're saying here we are not just concerned with business issues. We're concerned with all of the issues that impact successful businesses and communities is right at the heart of that.
And I think that's what I love about the chamber is, I remember during COVID, and it seems like it was a lifetime ago, but it really wasn't, right? We're looking at 6 years ago, right? 2019 is when it started, but we've had so much happen in such a very short period of time. I think people forget, but I do remember, and why I actually have huge accolades for the chamber and talk quite about it frequently is how much support the chamber has given to the community at a time of need when we didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know if I was able to keep my doors open. And the chamber was there, like you said, it wasn't just one meeting a day, it was multiple meetings. You always had resources. It felt like you had that partner right beside you when you're sitting in your office. I mean, I spent the majority of 2 years in an office with my assistant, and she was on the other side of the unit. I was on one. Everybody else was working from home, and that was the way that it was. But I still felt like I had the community around me, because I give you accolades for that from the chamber, because you did provide a lot of support and a lot of tools that I wouldn't even thought about, because you're so just worried about business, right? So I think you do such a phenomenal job on that. And that's why I want to bring into, like, what is the next kind of wave of change for us right now seems to be, I always say there's a word of the year. Last year was inflation. I mean, we're still kind of dabbling in that. Well, I think inflation was probably 2 years, but this year is tariffs. So tariffs, the trade war, what we're dealing with, the change, the pendulum, all these businesses, all these manufacturing companies, automobile companies, the infrastructure, even like from the tech side, when I look at, the Waterloo hub here, from the tech sector alone, I think we're the number one in the world in terms of innovation and drive and support. Like, the government, from what I've been reading, has allotted about $9 million to manufacturing and the tech sector for small businesses to be able to support them. But I'm also going, okay, where's the support for other businesses out there during this uncertain time? What's your feeling on tariffs? Where do you think that's going to impact us for our community? And a lot of these, driving goals that you're talking about for 1 million by, like, let's just say, like, in another 20 years, do you think that tariffs will calm down? Do you think that it's going to impact us and maybe change some of these goals?
So I'll start with COVID, because I think it is important to kind of set the context. So in COVID, that happened, and we started meeting. In fact, there was a precursor to what we call BEST Waterloo, the Business Economic Support Team of Waterloo Region, which is 2 chambers, Communitech, Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, and Explore Waterloo. And it was called the Prosperity Council, but it was really more of a gab fest, and we didn't really practically do a lot, and kind of frustrated me, although I always said we're better when we're talking together, saying here are things of common interest to all of us. So in COVID, we reactivated that. And Tony Lamantia from Waterloo ED said, hey, geez, we should get together and work on these things. And I said, yeah, Tony, that's exactly what I've been saying for a lot of years. But he brought it together. He got the region and the cities and all of our organizations together. And those days, I think the context between where we are today was everything was shut down. And in some respects, easy is not the word I want to use, but it was more uniform. If you were in hospitality and tourism, you knew when they shut down, here was the rules. Now, there was some clarification, but if you were a essential service, you were open. And if you were retail or, we all kind of in different ways kind of knew where things were going. It didn't make it easy. There was a lot of complexity, and government trying to create programs from a standing start, as the economy was literally frozen in time to a large extent, was pretty incredible. I mean, we were part of that. And we were part of, hey, this is working, that's not working, you're missing this. And we probably inboxed maybe, 12 letters in 2 or 3 years as private, kind of advice to government. We did some public, communications as well. But we quickly came to the point of saying, we gotta have a way of letting people know what's what. So we came up and I worked very closely with Greg at the Cambridge Chamber. You support the work that they're doing as well. And we said we should do some stuff together. So we first came up with chambercheck.ca. I said, where's the one place that we can put information from the government, updates on, because things were changing in those days,
so
like minute by minute.
Yeah.
So we said chambercheck.ca. We put all the information there. He and I would do, weekly podcasts, sometimes a couple times a week, saying, hey, here's the latest. And we would get someone on from whoever the expert of the time was on programs or on shutdowns or public health, vaccines. I mean, think about all the things that we did over that period of time. So, but in some respects, there was a homogeneity depending on your sector. Yeah. So if I pivot here, so that was the work that we were doing, and I remember saying to my board, and we all more or less did this, is said at the beginning of that is saying, I'm not laying people off. This is absolutely the time that we need to support our members. And I said, we will figure out what the financials look like, but I'm not laying people off. We need to, and we did phone calls for 3 or 4 months, just my entire staff, because we, at that time, this was before, we figured it out pretty quick, but we didn't have events for 3 months. We
I know.
didn't, because everything was in person, like, geez, what do we do? Now, we figured some of that out and did a lot of online. But that first 3 months, we did nothing but call every one of our members. How are you doing? How's things affecting you? What can we do to help? What would you like us to feed into government? So we were doing those sorts of things. We got chamber check done. We were trying to get information out. So we pivot to tariffs now, and I think it is true that we've reactivated chambercheck.ca. We're doing a weekly podcast or a webinar called Ask the Expert, where we try and bring people on from different sectors. We've had Flavio Volpe from the Auto Parts Manufacturing Association. We've had a bunch of different experts from law firms and accounting firms of saying, here are some of the things that you may face. Ask these questions so that you make smart decisions. But the one thing we've discovered is it's chaos. Donald Trump, again, I always say this, and I hope for your listeners, the stupidest man to ever be in the White House, who is, and I don't think it's not even close, but he's created global havoc with the tariffs. The problem that we have now is we've reverted to doing some of those programs again, and we're doing those phone calls to all our members. The problem is, every business is impacted differently. It's not by sector. Yeah. It depends on who your customers are. Where's your supply chain? Can you do substitution of products or supply? Everyone's different. So even inside of manufacturing, if your supply chain is a Canadian supply chain and you're selling to Europe, it's not a problem. Problem is, it's different for absolutely every business. This is the problem that we face in this circumstance, is in a global economy that has been, especially in North America, just totally integrated. It's like a ball of yarn that your cat has taken and had a field day for 2 days. Try and unwind that. It's impossible. So where we are now in terms of tariffs is we're still kind of in wait and see, because it's hard to get your arm and say, oh, here's what the U.S. wants. Mm-hmm. No one really knows what the U.S. wants. I think it's revenue for tax cuts for the rich, but I mean, that's my guess. Lots of people may agree with that, but where's the off-ramp? And putting tariffs on, just most recently, he said, oh yeah, we've got to deal with the UK and Europe. Then he says, oh, we're going to put a 50% tariff on European goods now. And then 24 hours later, he says, oh, I've paused them for 30 days. This from business, it's what we hear all the time. There's two things that stick out for me right now in this environment. And if I've got this wrong, feel free to reach out, your listeners, or I hear this from business people, is uncertainty kills investment of all descriptions. No one is hiring, or the hiring's really slowing down.
Exactly.
Investment of people saying, I'm going to build my next line, or I'm going to improve my machinery or buy a new thing. People are just saying, I can't make an informed decision on what to do if I don't know what's happening in the biggest part of our marketplace, which is the U.S. So uncertainty is one. The second one, more than anything, is cash flow. When people are getting charged, even if it's a 10% tariff on some things, most small business, remember, most businesses are small and medium sized. They're not large businesses. Exactly. They are not banks. They're not sitting on,
stockpile of cash.
There's not a pile of cash that they're pulling out from under things. So if they've got to charge on top of their regular, their business model, and they got to charge a 10% tariff, if your margins are 8% or 9% or 11%, all of a sudden you're now losing money or just breaking even. So cash flow is a huge problem for all kinds, whether you're the retailer that's the end user, whether you're the supply chain building things, or being part of an integrated auto sector where parts go back and forth 8 times. And I didn't really know what that meant, but Flavio came out and said, hey, look, you know why steel and auto tariffs affect you in the work that you do in mortgages is, well, you take rolled steel, which is made here, or aluminum, and then you send it to a stamping plant in Michigan where it gets formed, and then you send it back to Windsor where they punch holes in it, and then it goes to Kentucky to get coatings put on it. I mean, that's when you say back and forth 8 times. The original product before it comes could go 6, 7, 8 times before it ends up in an assembly plant. How do you unwind that? But it means, and all the supply chain, and remember, and this is the auto sector is probably the most obvious one of why tariffs makes no sense. If you you don't assemble a car until you've got all 4,000 parts or 4,500 parts. So it's not good to say, well, I got 4,450 parts, but I don't have those 50 plants because my suppliers have gone out of business. Well, you know what you're not doing? You're not building a car. You can't say, well, it's not like the IKEA furniture. We say, there's a few extra things here. I missed a few. I'd probably hold. That doesn't work. So that all of these things are the context between COVID and where we are now, the uncertainty here, and not knowing where the end goal is. Like, where's the finish line? When will we know that we can kind of go, okay, now here's the new environment that where we can all settle and say, okay, I know what it is. I know what the tariff regime is. I know what those things are, so people can start to make investment decisions. And that's, I don't know, to the last part of your question, I know it's been long, but we say, what should government be doing? I don't think, they put some broad measures of saying we're going to put $9 billion in this, and but they don't. It's hard to design a specific program when you don't know what you're trying to solve. Other than, let's say, if Donald Trump woke up tomorrow and said, my polls are crappy, the economy's tanking, the stock markets don't like it, the bond markets don't like what I'm doing. Nothing to see here. I was just kidding. We're going to go back to where we were on March 1st. Nothing gets unwound immediately. People are going to be, can't trust the U.S.
I know.
The uncertainty. Everyone is, and for us here in Waterloo Region and in Canada, the things that we've talked about. We had an election. Whatever you think of the result, I give kudos to Prime Minister Carney of saying, we have to do a bunch of big things that we should have been doing over the last 20 or 30 years. Ending interprovincial trade barriers, finding and expanding our markets so we're less dependent on the U.S., finding and developing trade-enabling infrastructure to get our products to market, whether it's minerals, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, so that we are not so dependent on the U.S. We can never leave ourselves so vulnerable to one customer. So we have to do we have to take this opportunity to say Waterloo Region is affected by what Donald Trump does in Washington and how it affects the rest of the world, because Canada's a trading nation. We are not selling what we make in Canada. We're selling it elsewhere. And so we have to have a certainty around trade, and we have to be saying, like, there's 51 countries that we have free trade agreements with. 51. 70% of it goes to one partner. That's the U.S. So geography and a proximity, it will probably, if you get it down to 50 even, you're still very vulnerable, but you've got other markets and you can kind of slowly expand to other markets. So uncertainty, the trust is gone. The old relationship will be gone. And I've heard some people say, well, just renegotiate a new agreement. Say, we have an agreement in place right this very moment that Donald Trump signed.
He did, exactly.
4 years ago, that he has just taken and ripped up and said, not following it. So, trade agreements, this moment of uncertainty makes it impossible or very, very difficult for decision makers. I've been an elected official as a local, but I've worked in Queen's Park. I have some experience around Ottawa. Really difficult to figure out what's the policy prescription when you have no idea what the problem is and you don't know what the person on the other side of the table wants or needs.
And you said everything that I've been thinking as well about tariffs. And it's funny because I was in a meeting early this morning, and one of the gentlemen I was with, who's very proficient and understands a lot of the economy and what's going on in the market, he says, is there actually tariffs that are implemented right now? And I just sat there and paused and went, I bet you a lot of people right now in Canada are wondering what is going on. Do we have tariffs? Do we not? And when there's that much instability, I find, and again, because I'm living and breathing the housing side, people just are at a stalemate. They pause. When there's uncertainty, they just, again, like at the beginning of COVID, they kind of hibernate, right? They don't know until there's actually a plan out there. And like you said, I found COVID was at least more systematic and pragmatic on what was outlaid. Where we all ended with what we think about COVID is everyone's own opinion. But I think with tariffs, we've been dealing with this since, it's been 100 and how many days now?
Yeah, March, I think March 1st, right? Or March 2nd.
Yeah. And I don't think in history we've ever seen a president do what he's done, not just to our country, but globally. And it's really hard to pivot. I've seen, and I'm going to go right on to dive right in the housing market right now, because I think that, tariffs are an unknown, and we're going to have to see. We really don't know, to your point, we don't know what the future is going to hold on that. But when I look at the housing market, this is spring market for us. In a market we desperately needed spring market. We haven't had it realistically for the last 2 years because of high inflation, high interest rates.
Yeah.
We're starting to see inflation. Well, inflation now is under, the target rate of 2%. However, the median core is where it's just funny, because I find that over time, I've never heard so much dissection of inflation in my life that I see now. If it's not one win, then we've got the polar opposite, where there's something sticky in inflation, and that's why we're not in decreasing interest rates. But our interest rates are reflective of what's happening in the U.S. If they sneeze, we get pneumonia, and that could be a good and a bad way. And I always use that analogy. But when looking at housing market here, specifically in our region, I think last year there were 6,000 houses that were being in construction, which is well under the target. The expectation is for the Kitchener region, I think it's 35,000 homes by 2031, and then 16,000 in the Waterloo region. We're not even close to hitting those targets. You said, we've got the immigration here. We're still going to have immigration here. And now we got tariffs that are impacting costs for the builder. I've talked to builders and, what their struggles are. How are we ever going to meet that goal? And where do you see the future of housing for people, and specifically even the younger generation that are getting very frustrated in this market?
Yeah. So, and this is where, you dive into the weeds, we dive into it. And for your listeners who may not all the time, here's where you have to start peeling back the onion of saying, when Donald Trump puts a tariff on steel and aluminum, you kind of go, it doesn't matter to me. Well, of course it does. If you're buying a house, or you're doing construction of your new, facility, and you need steel beams, and you need, you're buying a new car, and there is steel and aluminum in just about everything. So it raises the cost of everything when you have to either import, or we're exporting to the U.S. And when people aren't prepared to pay the 25%, then you're not shipping. And if they are, it just means everything goes up. So the complexity of what these tariffs mean, and steel and aluminum is just the start of it, because we said, the auto tariffs are on hold. Well, maybe they are, maybe they won't. Pick your day and figure out whether they're actually on pause or not. But steel and aluminum tariffs are still in place.
Yeah.
So, the core pace, I don't know what, I forget the latest that I heard from Flavio, but it probably adds $3,000 to the average cost of a car, just on the steel, just before the raw steel and aluminum. This is where the complexity of what all these things mean, if you bring it into housing is, think about the integrated supply chain. The reason is saying, okay, well, I'm getting my doors. Well, a lot of times, suppliers or construction firms here, would say, I'm just ordering my doors, because it didn't really matter where they were coming from. It could be from Ohio, it could be from Saskatoon, it could be from Quebec, wherever. Because there was no tariff, and you say, well, I like those, I like the what they have, I like the quality, I like the vinyl versus so you order them. Well, now all of a sudden you're going, okay, wait a minute, where do I get windows from? Where do I get double glazed windows, or the specific things? Now you have to be paying attention. Where's it coming from? And the reason we don't have duplicates in Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. is because certain things are done in certain areas. That's the way that the market over the last, I guess since the Free Trade Agreement in 1984, it started down this long path. That's 40 years ago. So when you're building you're doing the mortgaging of houses that are being built, and, all the raw materials have gone up. There's steel in every house. There's wood in every house. There's, the electrical. You think about all there's minerals, like when you talk about batteries and zero, all of the eco-friendly things. It's a complex. it's like saying your car is no longer just a car; it's a computer on wheels. Well, houses are quickly becoming that.
Absolutely.
So, like, the cost of those things going up, and we haven't even got to things like the development charges and cost of land and skilled labor.
That's what I was going to say, is labor.
Our friends at the Grand Valley Construction Association, Jeff McIntyre and his group. I mean, they were. How are we possibly going to be able to build that many homes? So here's the context when we talk about skills, right? Because this comes back to the end user saying, I want to buy a house in South Kitchener or Woolwich Township or a condo that might be putting up in Uptown Waterloo. Say, okay, we're going to build a new hospital in the next 10 years, but that's a $4 billion project, and it would take, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years to actually do the build from start to finish. You're going to do LRT phase 2 because there's no way we're building 70,000 housing units until we finish from Fairview Park Mall to South Cambridge, the LRT, because we know that's where some of that urban density is going to come from. We know, so just on those two, hospital, LRT, and 70,000 homes. Like, think of the skilled labor that we need that we don't have right now. Now, let's put this in context. Toronto's doing the same thing, and they're orders of magnitude bigger than us. They're going to do subways, and they've got new housing needs. And everywhere across the province, we don't have, we have to have what's our strategy for skilled labor? How are we doing, back to immigration? So this is where a lot of these things come in and saying, who are we bringing into this country? Are we bringing in skilled laborers in the construction field? Like, how are we being more strategic about what our own economic interests are, so that we can do the things on the ground that says we've got jobs for these people and we're building homes, and Tracy's able to find a mortgage that's affordable with these folks that are moving here. Like, these things are not divorced from stuff. When you say, oh geez, I'm not sure what's happening with inflation or interest rates, and it's anyone's guess on these things, but they're all connected. Tariffs is connected to housing supply, is connected to affordability, is connected to all of the things that we need to do. And it's why, frankly, the seat that I have, I give full credit to everyone in this community, elected officials, provincially, federally, and elsewhere. But it's important. I find it really exciting to be in Waterloo Region. We got great opportunities in front of us, but we got big challenges, and we have to ask tough questions, and we have to expect more of ourselves as a community to say, if we're going to grow, how are we going to do it? And we need to ask tough questions of all levels of government to say, what are we doing to make sure that we are, again, a community worth living in, that's affordable, that we have the services that people need, they can be successful with themselves, their families, they have jobs that can sustain them, and that it's a place that is an exciting and worthwhile community living in. There's lots of work to be done. I'm totally convinced that we'll get there.
Okay, awesome.
Because
we've got a lot of negative in this, but it's nice to show the optimism, right?
To me, it's not negative. It's raising the questions. Raising the questions and saying, do we have the plan to be successful? Right now, I would say, I don't see it as being an integrated plan. We got to ask the questions and say, what are we doing about all these different pockets? But we need to be asking these questions and expecting more of ourselves, so that we don't get to the point of just saying, oops, I guess we're 1 million people, but we're not ready. We need to be ready. I think we can be. As a community, we have always kind of met the moment. I believe we will meet the moment here in Waterloo Region. We've got all, you talk about all the benefits or the building blocks in Waterloo Region, technology, community, finance. We have agriculture. We have all of the pieces that for us to be successful, but we need to make sure that we're asking the right questions and getting our community focused on what are the things that we need to be doing now to be successful in 20 or 25 years.
And you just said it right. I think that, I've been in this community now for 28 years, but even longer because my grandparents, I came here in summers and spent the summers with my grandparents here. So I saw the evolution of how this community evolved and thrived and came together. And I think you're right. I think I've been in other communities, but I've never seen all the infrastructure and the amount of knowledge and support that we have in different divisions come together for the united vision of where we're going forward. And so I'm optimistic. I'm glad you are, because you're the one that holds most of the cards on this to bring everyone together. So I think that it's a conversation that's going to continue on as we go forward. And I can't believe we're almost at the top of the hour. We could continue to talk on, but I know I'm going to have you back.
Yeah, anytime.
I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your support, and your passion for the community, because it's leaders like you and many other leaders in different sectors that come together to be able to bring all this and break down the barriers and have the tough conversations with government and different divisions of government to bring it together. So I do commend you, Ian, and your whole team there at the Chamber.
Well, thank you for that. But I mean, one of the things that makes my job exciting is that I get to work with folks like yourself. And when we do podcasts, we never had these opportunities before. And I guess in some respects, it just accelerated, the opportunity for sharing information, that it's kind of not top down anymore. And so it's important for people to hear, not only just about the mortgage side and what you're doing, because that's really important, but the full context, because you provide a really important focus of your listeners kind of having this is bigger than I thought it was. And everyone has a role to play. I do think that just by asking questions, the community can help shape what the answers are. The elected officials around, the community leaders and not-for-profits and in the civil society and academia and business, everyone wants to do the right thing. We just need to get our proverbial stuff together and make sure that we have the plan with federal, provincial, regional, local partners and business in the community. And I'm convinced we'll do it. We've always done it in the past. I think part of this exercise of the scorecard and saying our Vision 1 million, are we ready? And it's not our vision, it was the community's vision. Yeah. We're just asking the question, are we ready? And I think now is the time to ask that question. Get the plan that says, how are we going to do those things? And so it's folks like you, it's the associations, the not-for-profits. Everyone has a role to play, because it ain't getting done, everyone together. It's all hands on deck if we're going to get there, and I know we will.
And on that note, if people that are listening, want to get involved or connect with you, Ian, and your amazing team at the Chamber, how do they do that?
Easiest way is go to our website, greaterkwchamber.com. You can find us at that tagline and all our socials, on Instagram, on Facebook, on X or whatever it's called now. But by all means, just find us on our website. You can find me. You can find my team. There's lots of ways we like to help business and community members.
Absolutely. And on that note, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you on my next episode.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, make sure you click the subscribe button or pass it on to your network. Until next time, keep supporting local and stay connected in your amazing community.